Okay, the story of salt in Africa has been, the story of salt's fascinated me for a long time. And my beautiful wife is the camera lady now, and she will have to help me out with some of the detail because I just had the most insane day today, completely unexpected. Long story short, we're on our way from Johannesburg to come and visit my daughter in Timbavati, right, which is on the Kruger Park. And on the way here, between
Leidenburg and Hoedspruit
Leidenburg and Hoedspruit, right, there's Echo Caves, and then there's the What of Man?
Museum.
The Museum of Man, which is a big cave where there's Bushman cave paintings, there's prehistoric man evidence of that, there's modern man, even the Boers used that cave at some point in time. Okay, there we met the most unbelievable man. He's an amateur historian, just absolutely brilliant. His name is Jeffrey. We started speaking to Jeffrey then about the use of salt in Africa. And I ask everybody this question because it's difficult to comprehend that in Africa they never use salt as a condiment or as to preserve their food, except, and one reference I got of the coup, or as they were called then, Hottentots. That's a derogatory word now, but that's what they were called. In Cape Town area, who use salt to preserve locusts. When they gathered them and they use salt, rub them in salt and leave them and preserve them to eat later. Okay, so no salt in Africa, in southern Africa at least, for preserving meat. That's what I believed until I met Jeffrey. Jeffrey's memory goes back. Jeffrey is 60 years old now. His father was 114.
No, 112.
112 when he passed away in
1990.
1990. I will post his entire interview, but it's in Afrikaans, and I want to say this in English to include our English friends in the discussion. Yeah. He says, right, that growing up, you remember his dad making biltong, right? This is a black man from a Pedi, local tribesman. He grew up in the rural area, herding cattle, and as a cattle boy, he remembered his dad making biltong from some of his earliest memories. How they made the biltong was to cut it into slithers, the meat, and then he would roll it in ash. And to prevent, for two reasons: to prevent the flies from keep them off the meat, and secondly for flavor, right? And then he says that the biltong, they would hang it up in the trees to dry, and once it's dry, they will to eat it, they will either cook it in water again, right, or they will roast it on the fire. When they roast it on the fire, they didn't use a stick or have it elevated in the air. They would put it on the coals, and then before they turn it around, they will dig the coals out, put new coals down, turn it around, right? According to him, if the meat is slightly off then, right, because obviously if you do it this way, your preservation is not very consistent. According to him, the roasting it prevents, it takes away the off flavor, right? If you would boil it in water and make a soup from it, the water will take on that off flavor that sometimes develop while the meat is hanging in the trees to dry. So, and he said that this thing of using ash on the meat, he said that is what gave the meat its flavor. And even when they cooked meat, normal cooking of meat, he said to me, that is the way that he grew up. That is the way his father did it, that is the way his grandfather did it, and presumably that is the way that his great-grandfather did it. So there is no question about the fact that in Africa, at least in this one instance, at least in the Pedi tradition, salt was used, right? Whether it is, depends of course on the type of vegetation they use to make the fire. But
the sauce.
The sauce?
Die bron.
Yeah, they definitely use salt. Right? There's no question about it. And it may have been high in potassium, it may have been high in all kinds of minerals, but there's no question about it that they used salt in preserving. They maybe didn't call it salt. They didn't. He says he recalls as a boy there was one place in the region where they would mine coarse salt from, right? And we will go and investigate that, and I will write all the stuff down, and I will get all the references, and I will get all the archaeologists involved and everything like that. And we will, even what I'm saying now, I'll go and write it down. But the most amazing day at the most unlikely place, I discovered absolutely salt was used in Africa in cooking. Not salt, if you go and look for it, you won't find it under salt, you will find it under ash. They rubbed the meat in ash, they rolled it in ash, right? It was for preserving and it was to keep the insects away. Right? So to me this is a big day, completely unexpected. Coming here to see Lauren, on the way asking this man, a brilliant amateur historian, just a lovely man. I will post his entire video. So,
And he is fluent in 5 languages.
of course he's fluent in 5 languages, and he translates. He's a brilliant, a very intelligent man. Fluent in 5 languages. He speaks Afrikaans absolutely beautifully. Even
Better than some Afrikaans people I know.
Better to some Afrikaans people. Just in terms of the biltong, the preservation, he says that they used cows and they used beef from the shoulder and from the leg, right? Or they would use game, also the shoulder and the leg to cut the biltong from. Again, just complete reversal on anything that I've read about this fact. Because I asked the people, have they used salt? And the answer is always no. And I realize now that I'm asking the wrong question. I should ask, have they been using ash? How have they been using ash, and where did the ash come from? What did they use for the cooking? What kinds of trees? Then we can go and investigate the trees. We can see the salt contents, as in we discovered in banana trees, high in salt. And in New Guinea, that's one of the recognized salt production methods, that they will burn the trees, they will harvest the salt from the tree, and they've got a process of purifying that. Then use solar evaporation or wind evaporation or whatever. They will get rid of the water, they will crystallize the salt out, they will harvest the salt, and they will trade with the salt. The same thing happened in Africa. Absolutely unbelievable.